Disinfection is a key to providing customers with safe drinking water, and there are multiple methods used by water providers to achieve that goal. Chlorine has been the most popular disinfectant in the United States for many years, and in most cases has proven to be a very successful strategy. But water researchers are constantly looking for alternative or supplemental methods to offset new and developing water treatment issues. This video will focus on two of the alternative methods utilized by water providers today: ozone and ultraviolet or UV disinfection. Both of these treatments address some of the issues that have concerned utility operators using chlorine disinfection, primarily that of chlorine's inability to destroy certain pathogens, such as cryptosporidium.
If we can make that bug, that organism that makes us sick, jump through as many hoops as we can, we're much more likely to get it, to knock it out, to kill it.
Cryptosporidium is a microorganism that has had a significant impact on water treatment strategies in recent years. A number of outbreaks in treated drinking water sources have led to serious illness and death. Cryptosporidium exists throughout the environment and is typically associated with human and animal waste. It has been found to be widespread in surface waters, and cryptosporidium has proven to be resistant to traditional chlorine disinfection practices. That's why water researchers have looked to technologies such as UV as a treatment process to resolve the pathogen issue.
The UV light actually destroys part of the DNA of the whatever it is, the crypto or the Giardia or the other bug that you're looking at. And so it's not really, they call it inactivation, it's not really killing the microbe, but it's just preventing it from replicating.
Ozone has also proven to be an effective treatment for certain source water characteristics.
The beauty of ozone compared to UV, sometimes we say UV is a one-trick pony because it's really good for Giardia and crypto, but ozone has a lot of other benefits. Ozone has the ability to destroy tastes and odors. It can help your filter plant, your coagulation, help your removals. Some plants, if they have an iron and manganese problem, ozone will help them with iron and manganese removals.
Let's take a closer look at both of these treatment strategies and consider some of the strengths and weaknesses of each. First, ozone. Ozone has been widely used for water treatment in Europe for more than a century. It's gained considerable acceptance in recent years in the United States. Ozone that's used for disinfecting water is similar to ozone created in nature when lightning electrifies oxygen in the atmosphere. An electrical charge supplies energy to bind the third oxygen atom. During ozone production for water treatment, the source oxygen is energized by a high-voltage spark and the ozone is applied to water. However, ozone is an unstable gas, and under normal circumstances it quickly returns to oxygen. Therefore, when ozone is used as a disinfectant, it can only be generated on-site. It can't be stored or shipped. Once ozone production and contact has been completed, off gases remain that need to be removed. Let's list some of the pros and cons of ozone treatment, starting with the pros. Ozone is a very powerful disinfectant capable of oxidizing iron and manganese and removing most of the impurities that cause color, taste, and odor in water.
People like to use ozone for organics control, for taste and odor. It's very effective for taste and odor, and it can improve filtration performance if it's used prior to the filters.
Ozonation aids the filtration process as coagulation improves, flocculation times are shortened, and filter load rates are increased. Compared to chlorine and chlorine dioxide, ozone yields fewer regulated disinfection byproducts. Ozone also oxidizes many disinfection byproduct precursors. The use of ozone requires the use of a post-disinfectant such as chlorine to act as a residual in the distribution system. However, ozone may potentially reduce the amount of secondary disinfectants needed. Ozone works effectively at both high and low pH levels. And finally, compared to chlorine, it is generally considered safer to use.
Ozone usually involves less operator handling. So I would say in some ways ozone is a little bit better, a little bit safer than chlorine. We don't store big tanks of it, whether it be gas or liquid. We don't ship it through your town. As long as we don't have ozone leaks in a facility, the operator never really comes in contact with it.
For a number of years, ozone was considered to be one of the most effective treatment strategies used to inactivate cryptosporidium. However, additional research has provided some exceptions to that notion.
We find that ozone has a much tougher time in activating it when the water gets cold, 5 degrees Celsius or even lower. And so someone like me from New England, that's a big deal because we have cold water sometimes. We have water that's just above freezing because our reservoir is ice over.
In cases of extremely cold water, the dose necessary to inactivate cryptosporidium is so high that it may not be economically feasible to generate it, which leads us to our list of ozone cons. Ozone is a fairly expensive treatment to install, and generating ozone requires a significant amount of electricity. Ozone is chemically unstable and dissipates quickly, so it must be monitored closely to determine whether the proper amount has been applied to effectively treat water.
Following disinfection, ozone dissipates, and so unlike chlorine, there's not a long-term residual. An additional chlorine or another type of chlorine-based disinfectant needs to be used after ozone.
And since it leaves no disinfectant residual, a secondary disinfectant must be added to comply with regulations requiring a residual at the distribution point of entry. Ozone can produce an undesirable byproduct. If source water contains bromide, it may react with ozone to produce bromate and brominated organics, which can have health risks. Another drawback is that ozone is very corrosive, so it requires the use of stainless steel pipes and corrosion-resistant materials in ozone facilities. Despite these cons, ozone continues to be utilized successfully at many water utilities, either as a primary or secondary treatment. The next alternative disinfection we'll focus on is UV. UV has been used in Europe for decades. In the United States, UV has been used for a number of years at wastewater treatment facilities and in small drinking water applications and systems. In the 1990s, researchers discovered that UV was a very effective disinfecting tool capable of inactivating cryptosporidium and giardia.
It's a stainless steel tube, generally, with lamps inside, and as the water passes through this tube, they're exposed to UV light, and if they get enough dose, if they get enough UV light hitting them, you sterilize them so they can't replicate. So that's how UV works, and so what we discovered is they don't need that much light to be sterilized. So which means that your reactor is much smaller.
The UV lamps inside the stainless steel tube are housed in a quartz sleeve. It's important these sleeves are monitored and cleaned periodically because deposits or stains from debris and minerals of passing water can limit the penetration of the UV light. UV lights don't burn out, but rather diminish in intensity and lose their effectiveness and must be replaced. Some plants replace their lamps yearly as a precaution. UV disinfection systems have grown in popularity in recent years due to a combination of factors.
It's a very simple technology in a lot of different ways compared to something like ozone or compared to membrane filters. So here we now had a technology that was relatively simple, seems to be a silver bullet for giardia and crypto, and quite frankly can be a tenth of the cost of some of the other technologies. And the last thing you hear a lot about is UV kills things at the speed of light.
Another popular characteristic of UV treatment is that it doesn't create any regulated disinfection byproducts. However, that must be balanced with the fact that UV also leaves no residual in the final product to let operators know it has done its job and will protect the water throughout the distribution system.
Ozone, chlorine, anything like that, you can measure the residual, right? You can grab a water sample and measure what's in the water and get some judgment as for how things are working. But the way UV unit works is the gatekeeper is this little UV sensor. It's a photoelectric diode that's sensitive to UV light.
It's one factor that has made some utility operators a little uneasy about utilizing UV technology.
It's a different type of control, and I think many people aren't used to that type of control yet. They're used to grabbing a sample and measuring a chemical residual. And because UV doesn't allow you to do that, there's a little bit of concern, I think, among some people that you can't always just go out, grab a sample of water, and know the residual.
The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency has published the Ultraviolet Disinfection Guidance Manual. This manual provides the states with an extensive testing program for UV systems. and it shows how the UV system must be operated so that the operator can be confident about what the UV unit is doing based on the UV intensity readings and flow rate. The UV unit is tested with live microorganisms to show its performance under different water and equipment conditions. Let's consider a pros and cons list for UV disinfection. As for pros, as mentioned, UV is a fairly inexpensive and simple process to install and utilize with a relatively small footprint. UV has proven to be one of the most effective means to quickly inactivate pathogens such as Cryptosporidium and Giardia. It takes just seconds of contact time as opposed to the required minutes of contact time of ozone. Researchers have yet to identify any significant issues regarding UV disinfectant byproducts. It has no on-site smell and leaves no chemical smell or taste in the final water product. There is no danger due to overdosing. UV effectiveness is not impacted by the temperature nor the pH levels of the source water. It has no toxic air or volatile organic compound emissions. Because of how UV is employed, it is a fairly safe technology for operators. It has little or no impact on the environment other than the disposal of used lamps and obsolete equipment. However, there is a natural risk associated with UV, and with the energy source used to power the lamps, that should not be discounted.
UV systems are high energy, and you have high energy on water, so you have to remind people to tag out and lock out systems. It also takes UV systems a while to discharge, so just shutting off the power is not good enough because there's very large capacitors in UV systems that take a while to drain down. So you have to train your operational staff, if they aren't trained already, in dealing with high power transformers, high power ballasts. Another issue certainly is UV is damaging to skin and to eyes. A medium pressure UV lamp, a 20 kilowatt lamp, will blind you before you even realize it.
Certain contaminants and particles, such as turbidity, organics, and iron, can reduce the transmission of UV light through water and shield dangerous microorganisms. The quartz sleeves protecting the UV lamps can become stained or have deposits built up on them over time. However, many UV systems have automatic cleaning. UV provides no disinfectant residual, so one must be added following treatment to meet distribution regulations and protect the integrity of the treated water. UV lamps currently have mercury in them. Therefore, if they break, mercury can enter the system. And finally, because it is a relatively new disinfectant technology, there is a limited database on equipment longevity, performance, and treatment effectiveness in a variety of settings. UV and ozone both work best in a particular set of source water circumstances, or as part of a multiple barrier approach to disinfection. It's a strategy that seems to be gaining acceptance with both researchers and utility operators.
One of the things I've talked a lot about in recent years, and I see a lot of utilities starting to embrace, is multiple disinfection barriers. You know, let's take that Giardia and Crypto and let's make it go through filtration, and then let's go through some ozone, and then UV, and then maybe we leave a chlorine or chlorine dioxide or chloramine residual. And of course, sometimes it's not affordable, but in a gut sense, then you've made that organism go through 3 different hoops, and you're much more likely to have totally killed it.
Ozone and UV disinfection will continue to be valuable tools in the utility operator's quest to treat water with the most efficient and effective technology available.